Hello and welcome to Tech Latest by Nikkei Asia, where we bring you the freshest updates from the technology sector in Asia. Every episode, one of our reporters from the region will be filling us in on the tech news on their radar, from semiconductors in China to space travel in Japan to startups in Indonesia. From Nikkei Asia's Tokyo headquarters, I'm Alice French. In this episode, I'm talking to our tech correspondent, Cheng Ting-Fang, who's currently based in London, about the triangle of interdependence that's emerged between the US, China, and Taiwan inside the tech supply chain. Hi, Annie. Thanks so much for making a special appearance on the podcast today, all the way from London.
Thank you so much, Alice, for having me.
Yes, so I'd love to chat to you about a story that was published this week that you wrote with your colleague Lawley in Taipei about how Taiwan has become the indispensable economy. But let's set the scene first. So why is Taiwan and its surroundings such a source of geopolitical tension right now? We often hear about it in the news, but can we go into the reasons behind that, and why might Western companies, especially from the US, want to leave the island?
The Pelosi visit that changed a lot, that become an excuse for Beijing to conduct live military drills around Taiwan. And that kind of thing become a new normal, like roughly 1 year ago. Because if you ask me who is a Taiwanese, more than 1 year ago, I will tell you it's impossible for China to take over Taiwan by force. They don't want to do that because that will come with severe consequences. In fact, the young generation of Taiwanese like me grew up in an era that is so peaceful and prosperous. And we never thought there will be a potential war here. So really, it's after the Pelosi visit. And then I am not very sure for the first time whether China could use force to control Taiwan. And that become a concern for so many tech giants from Apple, Google, Meta, Amazon, Intel, AMD, NVIDIA. They basically hope their suppliers could help them move capacity out of China, which is because of the tariff war, because of the tension between US and China, and also obviously now even out of Taiwan. However, it's quite impossible because the supply chain is all here.
Right, absolutely. And your story goes into that in quite a lot of detail about how Taiwan is just far too important to the tech supply chain for those companies to just up and leave. Can you give us an idea of some of the things that we use in our everyday lives that depend on Taiwan for production?
Most people think of chips at the first place, and you are right. But actually, do you know there are more, like many different type of chips, and then many different type of electronic components that need to go with chips, including the printed circuit boards that the chips are mounted on. And there are so many different types of chips, including the CPU and also the GPU, means the graphic processor, and as well as so many other chips like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, modem, and like 3D sensing chips and image processors, and also other components like displays and passive components. And then think about a scenario if you need a 1,000 component for an electronic devices such as a notebook computer, but there are 2 components that are missing, you still cannot get those computers shipped. So actually, Taiwan built all those chips, and also we have very significant display and printed circuit board industry, as well as the camera lens.
Right, so it sounds like tech companies would really be in a difficult situation if they couldn't access these components that are made in Taiwan. Which big Western tech companies in particular would be most affected were they to have to leave Taiwan?
Like basically everyone is equally exposed to the supply chain that's centered in Asia. So just take Apple's top suppliers. According to our analysis, nearly 70% of Apple's top suppliers making everything from processors to casings headquartered in either China, it's 26%, and Taiwan is 23%, and Japan is 17%, and South Korea is 7%. So it's all over like in Asia, and basically a lot of them are centered in China and Taiwan. Just take iPhone as an example. Like mobile processors, 5G modem chips, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth, power management, and the image signal processors, and 3D sensing components, and even gyroscope chips, print circuit boards, camera lens, and so on are all built in Taiwan. GPU that runs ChatGPT data center servers is also built in Taiwan too. And according to another Nikkei Asia analysis, just Apple's top suppliers, together there are more than 270 facilities making Apple's products or components in China. And there are some more than 60 facilities in Taiwan makes parts or components for Apple. So it's really a lot. Also, 80% of Apple's top 188 suppliers all have production facilities in China, and 22% of Apple's top 188 suppliers have manufacturing sites in Taiwan. But basically, Taiwan make a lot of like high value components, but these components are basically still shipped to China to be assembled as electronic products and then shipped to the world, to the US, to the Europe, and other places in the world.
Wow, it's quite staggering just how these big US companies can be quite so dependent on China and Taiwan, even though the US is trying to crack down on the Chinese tech industry right now. It's really quite something. And this doesn't look like an issue that's going to be solved quickly, right? Both Taiwan and China have big plans to expand chip production in the coming years, as far as I understand.
G7 just concluded. All the countries are talk about de-risking, and also all the countries recognize the importance of supply chain resilience right after the pandemic. So including Japan, the US, and also the EU, and even India, Singapore, all hope to bring vital semiconductor production onshore. So semiconductor has become the strategic resources really after the pandemic. And even Taiwan did not stop production for all those chips for one single day during the pandemic. We like function completely well. Still, countries suddenly recognize that the concentration of all supply chain in one place, like only in China and Taiwan, still pose risks to their supply chain resilience. So I do think that the diversification will happen, just it will be very slow, because like what we talked to some of the supply chain executives, they told us that maybe it will take at least 7 years, 8 years, even a decade to see some of the more fundamental shift in the supply chain. See how long TSMC need to build just one plant in Arizona. They announced that plant several years ago, but the plant back in 2020, but still in 2024, they will enter production for the first time. So you see how long that will take, and that is for like other companies like Intel's expansion and Samsung's expansion as well. It will take 4 or 5 years just to get one semiconductor plant like ongoing.
I see. So we're really in it for the long haul then, and we'll definitely have to keep up to date with your and Lolly's reporting on this topic. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Annie. We've really learned a lot, and I hope that you can come back on the podcast again soon.
Have a nice day.
That's all for this episode. You can read more of Annie's reporting, along with a host of other stories about Asia's tech industry, on Nikkei Asia's website, asia.nikkei.com. And if you like what you hear, why not subscribe to our weekly Tech Asia newsletter, which will be delivered to your inbox every Thursday. There's a link to sign up in the show notes. And check back in next time for more updates on the tech trends that matter.